you don't need to get winners super fast. So if you get less traffic, that usually means you're an earlier stage SaaS company, right? So you're kind of ramping up. And you know what? If you need to launch an A/B test and let it run for 3 months, let it run for 3 months. At least you are testing and at least you're gathering data, right? It's much better than doing what most businesses do and just like making a bunch of assumptions and rolling with it, right? And then what happens? So if you do that, if you just launch your site and you just assume that what you've got is good enough for now and you can always fix it later, right? And then you start driving a bunch of traffic. If your campaigns aren't doing well, then there's always the question of, is it because of our campaigns or is it because of our website? Now, if you're running an A/B test on the website, you will already know.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where data-driven decisions turn gut feelings into growth strategies and spreadsheets into your business's secret weapon. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Which part of your website is driving conversions and which part is just like there? Too many companies jump into conversion rate optimization with copycat tactics and half baked tests, hoping for a silver bullet. But a great conversion rate optimization isn't about throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's about asking the right questions, running smart experiments, and digging deep into what your audience really cares about. In this episode, we break down a practical, no fluff approach to conversion rate optimization that goes way beyond best practices and what your competitors are doing. You'll hear why tests should aim for 10% plus changes, how removal tests can uncover the dead weight on your site, and it's probably in there, and why even flashy content like leadership bios or autoplay videos might be hurting more than helping. I was shocked at some of the findings. We'll also explore real world testing wins and surprises, the importance of content hierarchy, and why static backgrounds sometimes outperform slick video headers. And yes, of course, we talk about AI, how it can support conversion rate optimization, but why you still need human judgment and data validation before rolling out changes. If you're ready to stop guessing and start optimizing with intention, this episode is going to be a gold mine for you. Because the truth is, high converting sites aren't built by copying, they're built by listening, testing, and learning. Let's dive in. Our founder on Tuesday was Danny Tomset, founder and CEO of Unique. Danny pulled back the curtain on building a global digital human platform. Amazing stuff. From early breakthroughs with IBM Watson to burnout moments during hypergrowth, Danny shared what it really takes to pioneer a new category. Whether you're navigating product market fit or just fascinated by AI avatars, this episode is a masterclass in resilience and strategic focus. Our expert guest last week was Warner Moore, founder of Gamma Force. Warren gave us a new lens on cybersecurity. Forget checklists and fear tactics. Warner showed how culture, leadership, and clear communications are at the core of every effective security program. If you're building anything that touches data, so like everyone listening, don't skip this one. My guest today is Chris Dayley. Chris is a digital marketing entrepreneur, speaker, and neuro-marketer who brings together psychology-based testing and analytics to figure out what really drives conversions. No, really, what drives conversions. As the founder of Smart CRO, he helps companies move beyond surface level design tweaks and start making decisions based on how humans actually think and behave. Whether it's headline placement, button color, or layout flow, Chris's work answers the question every founder and marketer ask: what really works and why? Well, here to tell us that, welcome, Chris Dayley. Hey, Chris, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me on. Excited to chat.
You are a neuro-marketer. which I think is way cool. What exactly does that mean for the audience? And how can understanding human psychology lead to better sales conversion?
Yeah, neuromarketing, to I guess define the term, is a combination of marketing and neuroscience or psychology, right? So, really, what neuromarketing is about and how I frame it is instead of using best practices or traditional marketing tactics, what neuromarketing seeks to do is understand what gets people to make decisions, right? Like the main question that we want to answer is why do people do the things they do? And
Right.
specifically on my end of things, we want to understand why do people convert when they come to our website? What is it that actually triggers them to convert? And so a lot of companies that I work with have a pretty good gut when it comes to what their customers want. But the biggest problem there is that I find is a lot of, especially higher up marketing executives, they get so convinced that their gut is right that they stop turning to data and they stop
Right.
challenging their gut feel for things, right? So, for example, I had a client a while back that their CEO was pretty well known in their industry. And so, on all of their landing pages, they had a picture of their CEO with some quote from him. And so I asked them, I said, why is that on there? And they said, because everybody knows who our CEO is, and that's he's recognizable, and so people are going to want to convert when they see him. And I said, have you tested a version of the page without that? And they said, oh no, why would we do that? I said,
Right.
at minimum you want to have data showing that is actually helping people convert. If you're just assuming that because a lot of people know your CEO, they're going to want to sign up or get a demo or whatever, that's a huge assumption. So we ran a test, a simple A B test, one version of the page where we removed the section with the CEO and the quote, and then the current version that had it. And when we removed the quote and the picture of the CEO, conversion rates increased by 19%. So I
Wow.
took those results back to the client and said, "Listen, you're missing out. Like for every 5 conversions, you could be getting another one if you remove this." And they said, "Oh, thanks for the data, Chris. I think we'll keep it on there. We think that's really important to have it on there." My purpose is to understand out of all the stuff that we have on a website, do customers actually want to see that stuff? If they do, what is it about that they want to see? And if they don't, so in this instance, neuromarketing is about investigating and exploring why was it that the picture of the CEO wasn't helpful? Is it because people really don't know who he is? Is it because people don't care who he is? Is it because what on this particular page, if they're signing up for a demo request, they're not going to be talking to the CEO, and that's not really what is helpful to them in converting. Maybe they recognize him. If I went to sign up for a demo of Amazon's web services and they have a picture of Jeff Bezos on there, is that helpful or is it not? I don't know. That's
Right.
what neuromarketing is. It's about getting beyond the best practices, getting beyond the gut, and exploring why do people make the decisions they do and what do they need to actually see in order to make the conversion decisions we want them to make.
Super helpful. What is some of the big mistakes that companies make when they're marketing or creating their websites and maybe just relying on their gut?
I think the single biggest mistake, right? Maybe not the biggest mistake, but the most pervasive mistake I see out there is copying a big competitor. So
Always.
yeah,
Yes.
and it's like you'll find somebody that's the big fish in your space. There's all kinds of reasons I hear for copying them. It's they do over $100 million in revenue a year, and they target the same customers that we do, and I know that they've tested this, and so if they've tested it, then it must work or whatever, right? So they'll copy a competitor. Now, why this doesn't work, I'll give a couple of examples. So there's a story I tell to a lot of my clients, the story of a guy from a couple thousand years ago called the Flying Monk. And I read about this when I was reading about flying machines, like the first attempts to build airplanes. So this guy named the Flying Monk, he went out and he tried to build a flying machine. So what he did is he looked at birds who could fly and he says, what do birds have? They have wings, they have a tail, and they have feathers. Okay, so that must be how they fly. So he made a little suit for himself, put wings on, poked some feathers in there, and put a tail on himself, and then climbed up on a building and jumped off. Right now, for all of us in the modern age, we're like, "What an idiot!" Obviously it's not going to work. And it didn't work, right? So he just fell down and broke his legs and gave up. Now, the problem with what he did was he looked at the surface of what was happening and he said, oh, okay, based on what I can see, here's what I need to do in order to fly, in order to be successful.
And it makes sense.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is he didn't understand any of the principles behind what makes a bird fly. He didn't
Yeah.
understand. Maybe it has nothing to do with the feathers. Like airplanes today don't have feathers, right? So maybe it has nothing to do with the
Right.
feathers. Maybe it's not necessarily about the tail or the wings. Maybe there's something else that's at play here. And so when businesses go and copy a competitor's website, you may have no idea why they're actually converting. And in a lot of cases, I'll see businesses launch a new site that is based largely off a competitor's site that either fails miserably or converts exactly the same as your old site. And the reason that happens is you didn't understand any of the conversion principles, right? You didn't understand like what maybe this other company, maybe what they're doing on their site works in the context of their business, their product, their messaging, their ads, their everything that they're doing, right? Like maybe the website only works in the context of their entire marketing funnel. And if you just copy their website, it won't work because you don't have all of the same front end
Right.
messaging. Your customers aren't hearing the same things when they encounter you at events, and you don't have all the same value propositions, whatever it is, right? So I had a client last year that had two businesses. They both had essentially the same products, but they were just different price points, right? So one was like more a premium type product and one was a slightly lower price point. But they essentially sold the same, had the same things across both sites. So what they did is they just copied their website. They cloned the site. Both sites looked identical except for substitute out the features and the prices. So I started running some optimization campaigns for them and I said, okay, so we have these two different sites. I think we should test both sites. And they said, no, it's the same audiences essentially. It's essentially the same products. So let's just test one site and apply the learnings to the other. And I said, okay, fine. But before we do that, before we assume that we can just roll over test winners to both sites, let's just take a test. Let's run the exact same A/B test on both sites and see if we get the same winner. And if we do, then I'm fine with copying and pasting between
That
sites.
makes sense.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's establish a baseline. Do these audiences respond the same? So we ran an A/B test. We took their home page and we tested, we did what I call an existence test or a removal test. We went through and removed some of the existing elements on the site. So they had a video on their homepage, they had a list of like their products, they had a value proposition section, some reviews. And so we had 4 or 5 different versions of each homepage, removing the same sections. And lo and behold, we had completely different winners. So on one site, removing the video increased conversion rates by 30%. On the other site, removing the video actually decreased conversion rates by 12%. So
Wow.
right away, we have this completely different response from these two audiences, even though they're theoretically targeting the same audiences and using very similar ads. Even within this context, we had very different audience responses. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. The biggest no-no is you don't want to just copy some other site, even if it's your own site. You don't just want to copy somebody else. You want to collect data and find out what actually works for our audience.
I think that's really smart. And it's very enticing just to copy something that you think is working, but you have no idea. Maybe they're running a test that day. Yeah, you have no idea what's going on. And like you said, just all the things behind that. And that's fascinating to me. You can take something and split that, and they're saying it's essentially the same product and essentially the same audiences, but clearly not.
Yeah. And even if you are targeting the same people, like even if you just took your audiences from Facebook and just cloned them, right? That doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? You're showing they are going to be slightly different products with slightly different messages and slightly different price points. And those slight differences can mean everything when it comes to audience
Absolutely.
response, right? Yeah, it is interesting to see how people, again, this is why I'm in the business that I'm in. I used to be in the traffic acquisition space. This is 12, 13 years ago. I was an SEO guy. And an SEO is all about just like getting your website out in front of people when they're looking.
Right.
Um, And I had a ton of success. This is back in the days when SEO was easy. We tripled our organic traffic in 6 months, some ridiculous number, but the number of conversions that we got stayed the same. So in other words, our conversion rate tanked. We got all this traffic, conversion rates tanked. We weren't getting any new conversions from all this traffic. So when that happens, of course, the question is, well, why? Why aren't they converting? Either the traffic sucks or our website sucks, right? And as an SEO guy, I'm like, oh, SEO is the holy grail of traffic. It can't be an SEO problem. So
Of course.
got to be a website problem. I asked around the teams that were responsible for the site. I asked the design team, and the designers are like, oh, no, our site looks amazing. It looks fantastic. There's nothing wrong with the design. And the developers are like, the site's not broken, it's working. So it's not the. So from everybody who was a stakeholder in the website, there was no problems. The problem there, though, was that no one was actually responsible for the conversion rate of the website. People were just responsible for making a nice looking website that works. So I found out
Yeah.
that you could run an A/B test and make some changes. So I took one of our landing pages. We had this really nice long form landing page with all these content sections. So I took that page and I essentially stripped out most of the lower deep content on the page. So I tested a short landing page versus a long landing page. Very unscientific test. I had no idea what I was doing. I would do a lot of things differently now, but it was at least a start, right? To say, what if I just change something on our page? And so we ran a test, split traffic between the two pages, and the shorter page that I had created converted 15, 16% better. So right away, it was like, oh, it's not the case that if you just have a nice looking page, it's going to convert. There's
Right.
something else at play here. And that's what made me fall in love with this whole world of conversion rate optimization.
That was very cool. And you worked in both B2C and B2B. Are there key behavioral differences between the audiences that SaaS founders ought to be thinking about when they're looking at their ICP and thinking how they should be going to market and present their face on the website?
So there are some key differences. Most of them have to do with the person that's buying and the motivations behind which they are buying, right? So when you're going B2C and you're going straight to a consumer, this is money that they are spending out of their own pocket for a need that they themselves have, right? And that so the motivations behind that are different, and the way that a customer in the B2C world responds to pricing, for example, is very different. When you're marketing to a B2B audience, it's typically not, unless you're marketing directly to a founder of a company, you're usually going to be marketing to a marketing director, a sales director, an HR director, somebody that is responsible for a division of a company. And so they are not spending money out of their own personal bank account. They're spending their budget, their company's money. And the way that customers respond to pricing, for instance, is very different in a B2B world. And so
That makes sense.
also the motivations for buying turn out to be pretty different, right? So with a personal product, like if I'm marketing a carpet cleaner for someone's house, right? Like the motivation is more like, I want my house to look nice when people come over. I want it to smell nice. I want to save time or whatever. When you're marketing to a professional who's at work, what they're wanting to do, they want to look good at work, right? They want to impress their boss. They want to impress their clients. They want to impress, like a lot of it is feeling more successful in what you do, right? And it might be saving time, so that freeing up time so that you can now use your time to do other important things, right? It might be saving on costs. It might be getting better results. But usually the motivations are less about improving your personal life, and it's all about improving your professional life, your professional reputation, those kinds of things. And so the types of value propositions that tend to resonate are very different. Now, what I will say is, zooming out even beyond that, when it comes to like principles, conversion principles, the principles actually are identical. I have run very similar tests for B2B and B2C companies. The types of tests that tend to move the needle on conversion rates usually tend to be the same types of tests. So those tests are testing value propositions. Now, again, the kind of value propositions you're going to mention on a conversion page are going to be very different in a SaaS world. But value propositions matter, right? So the types of
Yes.
tests that I run for both B2B and B2C companies are I run tests like this. Okay, let's test 5 different versions of our page. And on each version, we will zero in on one specific value proposition. Okay, so we'll have one version of the page that touts social proof, right? Our clients love us, our customers love us. Here's what they say about us, great customer service, blah, blah, blah. So you have one version that all of the value propositions center around social proof. Now, I have another version that centers around pain points. So, what are the pain points your customers are experiencing? Again, this might be in a SaaS world, it might be spending way too much time on stuff that doesn't work. It might be dealing with a ton of different vendors or whatever it is, right? There's going to be pain that they're experiencing
Sure.
right now. So, have a variation that highlights all the pain points. We have another variation that highlights all the benefits or features of using us, right? So it doesn't talk about the stuff they're experiencing. It's more about get a 10x ROI, get peace of mind, all this different stuff, right? So the benefits and features thing. And then we'll usually have something that is a combination of all of these, right? So you have one pain point and one benefit and one social proof element. That's a great test no matter what kind of business you own. And again, the details vary from B2B to B2C, but the actual principle there, the kind of strategy you're going to employ is going to be essentially the same. So those types of tests work regardless of industry. Content tests work regardless of industry. So a content test is you're going to take the content, like, so if, again, on a SaaS conversion page, there's lots of content you could put on there. My
Right.
experience
Right.
is most businesses, when they're launching a new SaaS website, they're going to include all of the content. Like they're going to put everything on there that you might want to know about the product or the.
It's true.
So now, then the question becomes, what content do they actually need to convert? So this is where I go back to the test I was mentioning earlier, the existence test. So we're going to take a
Yeah.
look at content and let's create 5 different versions. And on each one, let's remove one section of content that we have about our SaaS product, right? And let's see what happens if we remove the overview section or the details section or the value proposition outline section. You have all these different sections. See what happens if we remove the video that walks them through our product, right? Those are the kinds of things that you're going to test when it comes to content. And again, those tests work regardless of industry. Yeah, when it comes to SaaS versus B2C, again, I think the details are more what matters, but the principles and the strategies are almost identical.
Oh, that is absolute value right there. Great way to think about how to do that. What happens if you don't have enough traffic going to the site? So you're talking about running potentially 4 tests at once, maybe more. And what if you don't have enough volume to really get the result in a meaningful time? It may take 30 days to get enough traffic in there to have a winner. Or do you not see that? Can you find winners pretty quickly?
I'll say 2 things. Number one, you don't need to get winners super fast. So if you get less traffic, that usually means you're an earlier stage SaaS company, right? So you're ramping up. And you know what? If you need to launch an A/B test and let it run for 3 months, let it run for 3 months. At least you are testing and at least you're gathering data, right? It's much better than doing what most businesses do and just like making a bunch of assumptions and rolling with it, right? So
Yeah, stick with it for months and you have no idea, is this working or not?
yeah, and then what happens? So if you do that, if you just launch your site and you just assume that what you've got is good enough for now and you can always fix it later, right? And then you start driving a bunch of traffic. If your campaigns aren't doing well, then there's always the question of, is it because of our campaigns or is it because of our website? Now, if you're running an A/B test on the website, you will already know if all of them. So let's say again, you're running this like this removal test, and let's say you run this for 3 months and all of them convert the same. What that means right there is the content actually doesn't really matter a whole lot, right? If they're all converting exactly the same, it's not a content problem. Because if it was, you would see one or more of these radically altering your conversion rates, right? One of them would either
Right.
perform way better or way worse. Either way, if it performs better or worse, either one is good. Because if it performs worse, you know that thing is helping your customers. And if it performs better, then you know that you've got too much crap on there and you need to get rid of stuff. But
Yeah.
either way, it's good. But if they all perform the same, then you know, okay, it's not a content problem. So then you can at least rule that out. But if you just launch a site and go with it, then you have no idea if the problem is the site or the campaigns or your offer or whatever it is. So that's the first thing that I would say is just test. It doesn't matter how long it takes. The second thing that I'll say is when you get less traffic. So again, if you're earlier stage or if you're like launching a new product and it's you're not really doing a whole lot of marketing around it yet, so you're just going to have visitors trickling in. You're not looking for small gains, right? Like when
Right.
Amazon does A/B testing on their website, they get billions of visitors through. And so if they can improve conversion rates by 0.5%, then that's like billions of dollars of revenue for them. So they're looking for tiny improvements. When you're early stage, you're not looking for should we say our products or should we say the product? You're not going to be like testing semantics. You're
Right.
testing to look for bigger impacts. And so with bigger impact changes, you're going to be looking for more than a 10% increase or decrease in conversion rates. Usually
Yeah.
these tests, like these removal tests, they'll usually move the needle 20 to 30% or more in one test. And so with those types of impacts, you need a lot less traffic to get a good statistically significant result. So my advice always is just launch, just start testing, start gathering data. You're looking for big impact. So if you run this test for 2 to 3 months and you're not getting a big impact, then that means you're testing the wrong thing. So it's time to move on to the next concept, right?
Absolutely. Makes total sense. Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish Big Pond, delivering a world class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world class. Small Fish Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step by step frameworks and time tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Grab your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. All profits go there. Always have, always will. So dive in and make a difference. What role does content hierarchy play in improving conversion rate optimization, specifically for B2B, whether it's benefits or features or proof, or if you read the list of things that experts say are required, big long list, and you're saying removing content, which I think is really wise because we tend to bloat our sites. How should we think about what to put on there and maybe some things to remove?
So the first thing I'll say is, like I said, I always start with the removal test because the removal test is going to give you a prioritized list for future tests. So what I mean by that is, here's what I typically see when I'm testing on a SaaS site. Let's say you have four major sections of content, right? You have your product features list. You have a value proposition summary list. You have a why people work with us thing. You have a reviews section, right? Maybe a video. So again, what we will typically see is we go through and we test four different versions of this page. Each one removes a section. And what you'll usually see is, okay, the version that removed the social proof, that increased conversion rate. Okay, let's remove the social proof. The version that removed the features list decreased our conversion rates by 5%. So, okay, we want that and it's a 5% impact. But hey, when we removed the why people work with us section, it decreased conversion rates by 40%. Holy crap.
Huge.
Now, not only do we know that section is helpful, we know that it's the most helpful section on the entire page, right? So
Yeah.
now what we're going to be testing is going back to the hierarchy concept. Okay, if that's the most helpful section, maybe that should be the first section they see. And if
Right.
it is the first section they see, then what exactly should we say about this? Like why people work with us? Should we have 3 bullet points there or 5 bullet points? Or should we have a rotating slider that talks through some of the major points, right? But that's where, when you find a section that really matters to companies or to the people that you're marketing to, that's where you really zero in on that section and you try to optimize the crap out of it. You're going to test, what should the headline be? How much content should we have there? What should the CTA of that section be, right? That's another thing when it comes to like hierarchy. The other thing that's really important for SaaS companies is what is the next step in the process? What should the CTA be on each individual page of my site? There's a lot of different philosophies. A lot of people will say, okay, if the main CTA, if the main thing that I want people to do on the site is sign up for a demo, right? A lot of companies will just pepper demo requests, CTAs all throughout their site.
Right.
Sometimes that works great. Most times it doesn't, right? And the reason that it doesn't is people don't tend to want to sign up for a demo until they already have a compelling reason to want to dig in, right? And so until they've gotten the information they need, they won't usually sign up for that demo. So then the question is, okay, if I have this section that's why do people work with us? And that is the most important section. Then what do I take them to after that? What is the CTA there? Is it see more about how our product works? Is it read some case studies? Is it sign up for this webinar or watch a past webinar? Or is it go straight to the demo page? So that's the next thing that you're going to want to test there is looking at kind of just the conversion flow. If I have this super critical section, what then do I take them to do next? And then you measure conversion rates
Right.
based on those CTAs. So that's how I think about hierarchy is we start out by establishing what's the most important and least important content on the page. And then we prioritize and zero in on the content that's important, figure out where do we place that? Where does that take people? And that alone is probably 6 months worth of strategy right there. And you're going to, again, learn a lot about your customers in the meantime. You're going to learn a lot about what is it that makes them tick. I've seen so many clients that put reviews and case studies all over their site, only to find once we start testing that removing the case studies and reviews dramatically improves conversion rate. So what we thought that social proof mattered, turns out it doesn't matter at all, or maybe it's even hurting us.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the things that just your gut you think should work, or you're told all the experts say this is what you have to do. And then you find out from my audience, they really want something different. So it's really understanding what it is that your specific audience wants, and data shows it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think a big mistake you mentioned earlier, companies don't test. They just put it up there. We'll come back and fix it later. And we never do. I've done that before many times. Websites fix it at some point in the future. And then the ones that do test, some of those tests maybe aren't good tests. So there, should we have a blue button or a green button? They're not really testing necessarily the right things. What are the hallmarks of a good conversion rate optimization test that actually drives insights?
Okay, let me first tell you. So, when I first talk to a company, the first question that I will usually ask them is, have you done A B testing before? Have you done any kind of conversion optimization before? Most of the time, the answer is yes. But when I ask, oh, okay, what did that look like? What was the test? How did you run it? This is where the wheels start to fall off because what they'll say is, yeah, okay, so we redesigned our site last year. And so we tested it. And I said, well, how did you test it? We launched the site and then we compared conversion rates to the previous week and conversion rates went up. So the new site's working,
So it
right?
must be better.
Yeah. So now, for anyone who's done actual A/B testing, you know that is not a test at all. It's not even close, right? That's tantamount to saying, okay, hey, I had a headache yesterday, and then today I took ibuprofen, and guess what? I don't have a headache today. So maybe your headache went away, man.
Right.
Maybe it was going to go away whether or not you took that. So the problem is conversion rates fluctuate all the time. And especially since COVID, honestly, conversion rates have been really volatile across pretty much every industry. So we'll see huge influxes of conversions and traffic out of the blue. And then you'll see big drops and big dips. And that's happening all the time, whether or not you change anything on your site. And the problem with launching a new site and comparing to last week's conversion rates is no matter how stable you think your conversion rates are, something might have happened this week, right? So if you have a SaaS product and you are servicing, I'm just like things, if it's like an HR thing and Trump just said something really inflammatory online, guess what? Maybe a bunch of businesses are like doubling down on HR stuff because that just happened to be in the news. And so that like demand is
Right.
just going to spike this week no matter what. And so there's things like that can happen. There's also things like natural disasters, right? Pennsylvania is getting hammered by a storm right now. And so
Right.
I'm guessing a lot of people aren't going into work. And guess what? When people don't go into work, they're not looking for SaaS tools. So, that's going to artificially decrease your conversion rates. So if you launched a new site this week and you're like, holy crap, our conversion rates are tanking, maybe it's just because all of your potential clients are stuck at home right now. So
Right.
there's a lot of things like that can happen. So that's the first thing I'll say is that's not an A/B test. Launching something and comparing to last week's conversion rates is not an A/B test. What you need is you need a true apples to apples A/B test where you're running two variations simultaneously. You can do this with your own server side experiments, or you can use an A/B testing tool. There's tons of A/B testing tools out there. There are various costs. There's VWO, Convert. If you're using Adobe, you can use the Adobe testing tools that they have. There's
Sure.
tons of different tools out there, but you want to make sure that you're actually using a true A/B test, right? The second thing that I will say is you want to start big picture and work your way down to more minute details. So when I talk about big picture, when I talk about like these removal tests, those are big tests, right? We are like
Yeah.
radically challenging some of the fundamental assumptions that we have about our site. So usually what I do is so I'll start out and I'll ask my clients, why did you put this stuff on these pages? We'll go to the key conversion pages and I'll say, give me an idea. Like, how did you decide what to put on this page? And then you get this big sob story that just is loaded with assumptions. So I've been in the industry for 30 years and I really have a pulse on these things. And so we start out with, and there's always some story, like we start out with introducing getting some hype around what we do. And then the next section of content starts to build on that. And then the third section, then this section leads you to the call to action. And it's holy crap, like you have so many assumptions in there. Assuming that your customers are going to read all of your content in the order that you've put
Right.
it and actually piece that story together. And I guarantee that's not happening for the vast
Yeah.
majority of people. And then the second thing is you're assuming that order even makes sense, right? Like that you think that kind of stacking these value propositions and building up to this CTA is actually going to work. Maybe that doesn't work at all. So usually what I'll do is I'll start with why did we do what we did on our site and then make a list of key assumptions that we've made.
You missed one of my favorite ones, and that is that's the way it was in the template.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Yeah, and fortunately most businesses are humble enough to say, "Oh, if it was part of the template, maybe it's not working." Although I will say it is particularly pervasive if you have a theme or a template that is widely used in your industry. If it's widely used, it's super easy to assume that it's been tested. And I will say, just newsflash, the companies, even like this happens all the time with Shopify clients. They're like, oh, I know Shopify tests these themes. And the newsflash there is they don't. um,
Why would they?
yeah, exactly. People are going to use them no matter what.
They just
So
make them look pretty.
yeah. So WordPress themes, like whatever you're using, I guarantee it's either hasn't been tested or again, even if it wasn't tested for your business. So maybe it doesn't work for your business. So we
Okay.
make the list of assumptions, then we go through and run some tests to challenge it. So I'll give you another challenge test. So I have a client right now. We're in the middle of a test right now where they have this really fancy video background, right? And their assumption was this video background like sets the stage for our service, right? Like it like visually demonstrates what it is that we do and how we help, and it puts them in the right mindset. So my question then always is, does it? Does it actually do that? So we ran this is a simple test where we had video background versus a static background. And the static background is dramatically outperforming the video background. It's like a 26% increase in conversion rates.
Wow.
So we're learning right there that our assumption was off, and probably what's happening is either the video is distracting the customer, or it may be influencing their mindset, but not in the way that we want. Like it might actually
Right.
be hurting, putting them in the wrong mindset, at least the wrong mindset to convert. So that's what. So we'll make a list of assumptions, go through and tackle those first, and get a good pulse on, is what we're doing right now working, or is there a better way of doing things? And then from there, you use the data to drive you to future tests, right? So if the background, for instance, does make a huge difference, Well, then we want to run more tests around that to figure out, okay, if the background makes a huge difference, then let's test a bunch of backgrounds. Let's test
Right.
a fancy styled background with that has an opaque overlay on it so you can read the text versus just having a solid colored background that looks boring. Let's try to push this concept, this idea as far as we can and see how far can we push this before the customers hate what we're doing, right? So you want to dig deeper into the things that work. The idea of like button color testing, that's something that's like the redheaded stepchild of the conversion rate optimization industry. And that sometimes can work, but only in a certain context. And the context in which it usually works is if what you're looking at is visual cues on a site. So the
Mm,
principle is visual cues. What you're trying to understand, and the question that you should be asking is, how do we help people understand what the best next step is? So
right.
there's lots of ways that you can do this. I had a SaaS company once where they literally would put like a finger pointing, like a little picture of a finger pointing to the CTA button on every page. That this giant obvious call out of here's what you need to do next, right? So the principle is how do we make it as simple as possible to understand the next step? And sometimes color contrast can help because what does happen a lot is designers love neutral color palettes. So designers don't typically design sites that have anything that really stands out. So you'll
Right.
have a lot of whites, blues, and grays, and your headlines are blue, and your CTA buttons are blue, and your navigation is blue, and everything else is gray. And so, like, really nothing stands out on the page. So, in some cases, when you're looking at visual cues, you may say, we're only using these three colors on our site. What if we threw like a red in there or an orange? What
Right.
if we did something that broke the mold for the page? And you don't just want to test button colors, right? You may want to test you have a bunch of blue on your page, maybe make all your headlines red or orange or something that really contrasts. And you also test your buttons, you may also test your reviews, but you're going to test different things to really draw attention to that one element. And so that's where I find that things like color do matter. But you don't want to start there. You want to start
Right.
again with what are the major assumptions we've made about our audience? What's the content that we think we should use? And then what are the major value propositions? That's usually where you want to start. And then you'll work your way into more small scale, refined tests from there.
That's good. AI is something that is definitely a hot topic, and we've got chatbots and AI personalization, lots of things that are happening. How are expectations changing, and what do websites have to do to keep up?
The first thing that I'll say there is AI is like all the rage, and I mean, if you go on LinkedIn, I think 50% of the posts that I read on LinkedIn have something to do with AI. And
Of course.
it's gotten to the point where I just don't even read any of it anymore personally because I'm just like so fed up with it. And part of the reason I get fed up with it is I've done quite a bit of testing over the last few months for some of my clients, testing AI features on a site. Like in the B2C world right now, Shopify is in the midst of this rumored partnership with ChatGPT, where you can have this like native ChatGPT integration that's going to supposedly change the way people browse websites and whatnot. And that's great. These are fun, interesting new tools. So a lot of companies right now are jumping on the AI chatbot train. All of your chat features are AI. They're adding little AI bars at the bottom of the screen. That's what are you looking for? And then as you type in, it starts to, or you give it a prompt and then it gives you exactly the right page, whatever it is, right? What I will say is, out of all the companies that I have tested this for, the biggest positive impact that I have seen is maybe like an 8% increase in conversion rates by utilizing some sort of AI tool. Most of them are conversion rate neutral, and several of the ways that I have tested utilizing AI on sites have actually decreased conversion rates. So the first thing that I would say is when it comes to your what types of AI features you should use on your site, be very suspicious of thinking you need to use anything at all, right? So if you are going to try something, you want to try it in the environment of an A/B test, right? So if you're going to try an AI chatbot, test an AI chatbot versus having no chat feature at all. Because I have news. Most sites that use chat are either doing it to try to circumvent their customer service teams so their customer service teams don't have to get as many phone calls, or they're doing it because their competitors are doing it. And the reality is, most of the clients that I work with, their customers don't want to chat. Now, you may have this big song and dance about why people absolutely need to chat. Your product is so complex and there's no way they could ever understand it. And I think they're going to convert so much better if they can chat, whatever it
Right.
is, right? But that doesn't mean that's actually what's going to convert, right? A, you want to be suspicious. B, you want to test your way into any AI features. Now, that's on like the website side of things. When it comes to conversion rate optimization, there's actually a lot of really great ways you can use AI. So, one of the things that I've been doing lately, even with my own clients, is I'll ask my clients first, give me a list of all of the value propositions. Give me your value propositions, right? Then I'll go to an AI tool and I will say, scan this site and summarize the top 10 value propositions on this site. And what this can do is what this can help highlight some of the discrepancies between what we think our value propositions are and then
Yeah.
what AI actually finds on our website, right? So that can highlight either some potential gaps or opportunities. And then the other thing that can be really helpful is, again, thinking about testing, because I think one of the biggest challenges that businesses have is we get our tunnel vision. We get the tunnel
Yes.
vision of here's what I think people need in order to convert. And so what you can do is you can put a prompt into AI and say, scan my site and give me 10 different ways I could position my value proposition. Or give me 10 different pain points that someone might be feeling that might lead them to want to convert. And then again, what this usually does, it's not like you're going to copy and paste any of these directly into a test, although maybe sometimes you will. But usually what it will do is it will spur some ideas for you and it will go, oh, yeah, that's a great one. I didn't even think about putting that particular pain point on there. Or, yeah, that's a much better way of summarizing what I do. Again,
Right.
we get stuck in our tunnel and our echo chamber, and we start using all of our industry jargon that we think people are going to understand. And sometimes AI does a better job at dumbing that down. So that's a great way. Again, using AI on your site to convert customers is one thing that you want to test, but you also want to try to use AI to push the boundaries of what you might consider doing on your website and what you might consider testing.
That's definitely connected some dots. And just thinking about the chat and having that on there, and this kind of goes back to copying the big companies. So for them, a 1% increase in conversion might be huge. Maybe that's why they did it. And then we try and copy that, and it doesn't move the needle for us because it's so small. So just thinking about that again, not just copying what we see out there in the marketplace, but really understanding the why behind it and what we're trying to do.
And what I will also say is the whole idea of chat only makes sense if it is complicated to convert, right? If the conversion process or the product offering is very complicated, well, my first question is, why is it so
Why?
complicated? Does it need to
Exactly.
be that complicated? But then second, it's, does a chat feature actually help solve this? So like I liken these like pervasive chat bubbles that follow you through the site to, if you're going to buy a car and you've got the sales
Yes.
guy following you around the lot, right? Some people love that because it's, I have no idea what I'm doing. But for me, I usually research and I have a pretty good idea of what I want. And so I'm like, leave me alone. I just want to look at the dang car. Like, I want to look at
Right.
it. I'll let you know if I want to go on a test drive, but leave me alone. Or if you go into a furniture store and you don't know what you're
Yes.
looking for and you're like, I just want to go and sit on a bunch of couches. And the sales guy comes up and is like, what you looking for? We got a sale over here. We got a sale, whatever. So a lot of times that is how customers perceive these chat features. So again, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't use chat. I'm just saying you want to be really weary of why you're using it and then test it and see, does it actually convert better than not even having it.
Right. And then if it does, if people are asking questions, that's content that should be on the website and you're answering that before. So you need chat less and less because you're putting out the content that people are looking for.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. But I really like the question of why is conversion so hard and how do we make it easier? Where's the friction? Let's get rid of that. That's, I think, a much bigger problem to solve.
Yeah, and that's actually, again, one of the things that can be helpful as you're looking for some of these bigger picture opportunities on your site. I like to look through like how many steps is it to convert? How long does it take me to convert? You can add Microsoft Clarity to your site, which is a free tool that you can use to get session recordings and heat mapping and all that kind of stuff. So it's helpful sometimes now I'll say heat mapping and session recordings are like the black hole of marketing. Like sometimes
It's true.
you want to make sure that you spend no more than like 30 minutes a week looking at this stuff, because you can just dive down that rabbit hole and you'll never come out. But if you spend 30 minutes and just filter your session recordings and say, I want to see session recordings that are longer than a minute and a half that didn't convert, right? And look for commonalities there. Where are people bailing out? Where do they pause for a long time? Where does it seem like they're having a hard time doing something? That can also open up testing opportunities for you. So I'll tell you one way that we used this for one of my clients. We had a site that we were testing for, and there was an image that they had on one of their pages. I think it was an image of like how the tool operates, right? Like how you use the tool. It was just a screenshot of the tool. And a ton of people were clicking on that. And it wasn't clickable. It's not an actual clickable element. It was just a picture.
Interesting.
And so we look at that and go, oh, a bunch of people are clicking on that. Why would they be clicking on it? What might they want to see? Maybe they're looking for more screenshots of the tool. So then we tested it. We made it clickable. And when you click on it, it pulls up a quick gallery of tool screenshots. That by itself increased conversion rates dramatically. It was like a 30-40% increase in conversion rates. Then we pushed it a step further and went, okay, this clearly is a huge lever for us. Let's test what else we might want to have. So we started out with, you click on the image and it pulls up a gallery. Then we added in below the gallery some reviews, and we added in a quick summary of features. And we ended up with almost a short like conversion box where you have like a gallery of images and a quote and a get a free demo button, and almost doubled the conversion rate of that page just by taking that one element that people thought they could click on and going, maybe it should be clickable. What can we do?
That's really smart. And also that when they're clicking on that is a really high intent buying signal.
Yes.
And that's somebody that's serious. They want to go deeper and really understanding what is the psychology behind that. I love that question. Why? Why would they click it?
Yeah.
And then how do we give them that experience they're looking for by clicking something that they can't click today?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So good. Where can people learn more about you online?
I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Dayley. My last name's Dayley. You can visit my website. It is smart-cro.com, and love chatting about conversion rate optimization. So if you're curious about best tools to use or anything like that, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat and dig in.
Outstanding. So valuable today. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thanks again, Chris, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Chris and Smart CRO at smart-cro.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Full video episodes, shorts, outtakes, training, lots of resources over there for you on YouTube. Thought leaders share, and I bet you're a thought leader because you're still here. Share this episode with someone you admire professionally. It's an easy way to connect over something smart and actionable. And then they'll hear this and they'll know that you admire them professionally. Everyone who shares this week gets a cup of coffee so strong it pitches your idea before you open your mouth. Results may include spontaneous TED Talks. Is your dev team building security in or patching it later? Next week, Laura Belmain, CEO of SafeStack and author of Security for Everyone, shows us how to weave secure software practices right into our culture from day one. 1 week from today, Natalia Zakarin, founder of Zakarin Consulting, joins us to talk about mastering your financials and building a business that thrives even in uncertain markets. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.